the DNA results don't come close to proving that an intruder killed JonBenet.
It's certainly possible that an intruder was responsible for the murder, but I don't think that the DNA evidence proves it.
The only way I can describe this evidence is uninformative. It really is, it's not dispositive of the presence of a perpetrator. There is foreign DNA, but that foreign DNA can easily be accounted for by a number of innocent mechanisms.
Male DNA was originally identified in JonBenet's underwear during testing in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Lacey ordered new tests in 2007 and 2008 on JonBenet's long johns and nightgown. It's those tests that led Lacey to exonerate the Ramseys.
I can tell you in my experience,
a decision that confounded Troy Ide, a former U.S. attorney who was on the Ramsey task force appointed by Governor Owens.
There's a real danger whenever you say, okay, we've looked at this and we've categorically determined something.
The experts who reviewed the DNA test data for 9 News and the Daily Camera questioned Lacey's exoneration on multiple fronts. First, the DNA profile Lacey said belonged to the killer may not be the profile of a single person.
There is a reasonable chance that what has been attributed to a single individual actually represents DNA from multiple individuals that has been sort of hobbled together into a single profile.
Well, it's a rather obvious point, but I mean, if you're looking for somebody who doesn't exist because it's actually several people, it's a problem.
And as for the DNA on the long johns, heralded by Lacey as conclusive, our experts believe those 2 spots are mixtures of genetic material from more than 2 people.
It looks and appears to me to be at least 3 individuals. And so that there's a mixture here that's not just a single profile.
Which is precisely what Mary Lacey knew before she exonerated the Ramseys. This report, obtained by 9 News and the Daily Camera, went to Lacey's office 3 months before she cleared the family. Of the 2 spots on JonBenet's long johns, the report says it's likely more than 2 people contributed to the mixtures. And after eliminating JonBenet's DNA, the remaining DNA contribution should not be considered a single source profile.
She knew, based on your investigation, that this DNA wasn't necessarily from one person, and that it in fact was potentially accumulated DNA. She knew it at the time, and why she used this evidence to clear the Ramsey family then, a clearance that has continued because it's on the public record through today, is something I can't explain, and she should explain.
Mary Lacey never responded to our questions about her decision to exonerate the Ramseys. She left office in 2009, and she didn't respond to our calls, our emails, our letters, or our visits to her Boulder home. And if you think it looks like she set out to prove the intruder theory, you are not alone. Independent experts who reviewed the case told 9 Wants to Know and the Boulder Daily Camera they think Lacey succumbed to a phenomenon well known in human psychology. Understanding the DNA evidence in the murder of JonBenet Ramsey means understanding this. Everywhere we go, we leave little bits of ourselves.
Merely talking for 15 to 30 seconds is enough to detect a DNA profile on the desk in front of you.
That reality challenges one of the central tenets of the DNA evidence in the JonBenet Ramsey case. One made public when former Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey exonerated the Ramsey family in 2008, saying that there's no innocent explanation for genetic material found in the girls' underwear and long johns.
My guess is that if we took your shirt and did some DNA testing on it at the level of sensitivity involved in this case, we'd find your DNA, we'd probably find some other people's DNA on there as well.
Lacey's exoneration letter said she had concluded that foreign DNA on JonBenet's clothing could not have gotten there inadvertently, something our experts say is just not true. They say there are plenty of reasons the DNA on JonBenet's clothing could be innocent, reasons that have nothing to do with murder.
You shed 40,000 cells per hour. You are leaving your DNA everywhere. When wherever you go physically, you're leaving a small part of yourself.
Mary Lacey discounted that possibility when she issued her letter exonerating the Ramseys and concluding the DNA must be the killers.
I thought that was a bit of a leap to claim that there couldn't be an innocent explanation for what was found.
How did Lacey's conclusion differ so much from the actual DNA tests? Lacey was long known to support the theory that an intruder, not a family member, killed JonBenet. something our experts believe could have led her to succumb to what's known as confirmation bias.
In human psychology, we like to see patterns. We like to see puzzle pieces fitted together.
Confirmation bias can affect how an investigator with a theory interprets evidence.
You tend to believe data, which confirms your hypothesis. You tend to think of explanations to refute data, which do not support your hypothesis.
Case in point, these never-before-seen emails. They show that after preliminary tests found the presence of unknown male DNA on JonBenet's long johns, an investigator in Lacey's office replied that his bosses didn't see the need for additional testing.
It sounds like they got a result that they were looking for and decided to quit while they were ahead.
The lab that Lacey used later provided her with reports showing that the unknown DNA on the long johns was likely part of a mixture of genetic material from more than 2 people, but that was never before made public until now. She issued her exoneration in spite of the confusing DNA results, an exoneration the family still points to as proof they were not involved. Just last month, Ramsey lawyer Lynn Wood used the exoneration to challenge news reports suggesting it could be a family member who killed JonBenet. In a tweet, Wood said, in 2008, Boulder DA publicly exonerated them and apologized. DNA evidence conclusive. End of story. And in another tweet, he said, this is a DNA case, plain and simple.
No, it is not. It's clearly not. We have a question profile that is very low level in terms of the amount of DNA. The quantity of DNA is very small. The profile is extremely complex. The one thing this case is not, it is not a DNA case, pure and simple.
A.M. JonBenet's mother, Patsy, goes downstairs and finds an apparent ransom note, 3 pages long.
I couldn't read the whole thing. I just gotten up. We were it was the day after Christmas, and we were going to go visiting. And it was quite early in the morning, and I had gotten dressed and was on my way to the kitchen to make some coffee. And we have a back staircase from the bedroom areas, and I always come down that staircase, and I'm usually the first one down. And the note was lying across the 3 pages across the run of one of the stair treads. And it was kind of dimly lit. It was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John. It said, Mr. Ramsey. And it said, we have your daughter. And it just wasn't registering. And I may have gotten through another sentence, like, we have your daughter, and I don't know if I got any further than that. And I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door, and she was not in her bed. And I screamed for John.
The note asked for $118,000.
Professionally speaking, how certain are you that Patsy Ramsey wrote this ransom note?
It's highly probable that she wrote the ransom note.
Cina Wong has testified in more than 60 trials. She says she compared that ransom note with more than 100 samples of Patsy Ramsey's handwriting. She created these charts.
First of all, here are some similarities
claiming she found substantial similarities with the way certain letters were formed, such as these A's.
And so you will see that just with the A's, the ransom note writer has 4 different variations of the letter A, and then Patsy Ramsey uses the same variation of the 4 different types of A's.
In total, she says she found over 200 similarities in the writing, including unique ways letter combinations were formed.
On the first example, you'll see that when the letter T and E are written together, they connect, they touch. And on the second one, it's called a misplaced capital. There's a capital L in the middle of it, and the word will, and you'll see that there's a capital L at the end of it.
So this is Patsy's handwriting, this is the
ransom note, right. When the word unharmed is written, you'll see that the A, that this portion of it is up above, it's higher than the hump of the H, and that happens in both cases.
The ransom note. The ransom note was written on a pad and a pen from your home. And the question is, if the intruder was planning to write a note, why wouldn't he or she have brought their own pad and paper?
They knew that the less they brought in the house, the better.
But they planned to write a note?
Apparently.
Before or after the crime?
I think the note was written before the crime was committed.
What has thrown great suspicion on you, Mrs. Ramsey, as you know, is that some handwriting experts have said that there's a similarity between the writing on this note and your handwriting. This has been inconclusive, but the similarity of the handwriting is the strongest piece of evidence implicating you.
Well, if that's the strongest, then there's not much of a case.
Heard the theory yet. I totally agree that whoever wrote this ransom note killed our daughter. Yes, I concur wholeheartedly.